Today, an FBI whistleblower comes forward talking to Benny Johnson about how they're actively destroying evidence now that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino are in charge. The libs tried to frame Elon Musk as a bad parent, and it backfires horribly. Joy Reid has a come-to-Jesus moment about how much she sucks. Donald Trump drops the hammer on the Ukraine and Canada. We got Jasmine Crocket on The Breakfast Club, proving once again that she's a complete tool. Dan Bongino gets emotional about his new position. Pete Hegseth has a massive mic drop moment, and a lot more. Let's get it.
My show had value, and that that what I was doing had value. And in the end, I try not to cry on TV. And I think this is kind of like me on TV, so I apologize. And then it mattered.
Reid just had a massive meltdown about being fired from MSNBC, who, as you can see, are really shaking things up because they have no choice. Nobody believes this trash anymore. They're bleeding viewers. I'm guessing the ad money is not coming in as much. Rachel Maddow is now going to be down to once a week instead of 5 days a week, which is still too much. So we're going to get to Joy Reid. But before that, a clip of Elon Musk. The libs tried to paint him as a bad parent, chopping up a video and editing it in a shady way. So let's look at that first, then Joy Reid, and then Kamala Harris, who did her first interview in a while, and it goes about as bad as you would expect it to. Let's go.
You know, I always say we have to be protective of our geniuses because we don't have too many. But that was, when I watched his rocket come down about 3 months ago, and I thought it was crashing. I was talking to somebody on the phone. By the way, same thing happened yesterday. We don't have too many, but that one is a good one. No, I watched this rocket come down about 3 months ago.
You're leaving your little boy.
And I thought it was crashing. I was talking to somebody on the phone.
My show had value, and that that what I was doing had value. And in the end, I try not to cry on TV. And I think this is kind of like me on TV, so I apologize. And then it mattered. I see Karen is there, and she's been texting me as well. And so what I will just say is that in the end, thank you. Where I land is that the moment of guilt that I felt, that I went hard on so many issues, whether it was the Black Lives Matter issues of a young baby or a mom or a dad that was killed, or when we opened up people's eyes to the fact that Asian Americans were being targeted and not just Black folks, or went hard for immigrants who've done nothing but come to this country like my parents did and try to make a life and defended them, or whether we've talked about what the president is doing that is subversive to the Constitution, that is injurious to our liberty, defending books that people find inconvenient, that Nicole Hannah-Jones put into our spirit, that we need to understand 1619 as the real founding of this country, whether it's talking about any of these issues, and yes, whether it's talking about Gaza and the fact that we as the American people have a right to object, to little babies being bombed. And where I come down on that is I'm not sorry. I am not sorry that I stood up for those things, because those things are of God. And I'm a church girl too, and those are the things that I was taught were of God. And so I'm not sorry. I'm just proud of my show.
What goes through your mind when you see this? You're here, you're now seeing it up close.
It's not only seeing it, Alex, you can smell it. You can feel it, right? So it's seeing it with our eyes, and many people have seen it. You all are covering it. But to literally be on the ground here, you can smell the smoke that was here. You can feel the toxicity, frankly, of the environment. You can feel the energy of all of the folks who are still here on the ground.
As much as I dislike Kamala Harris, and I'm happy we don't have to live with her being in office in any way, shape, or form, it is a guilty pleasure of mine to listen to her do those interviews. So Trump today met with President Macron, and they discussed the Ukraine, tariffs, There's also a small clip here of him talking about what Elon Musk is doing with the emails, asking these federal employees to answer a few questions about what their daily tasks are, which I would assume when I think about these people working at home, this is how I see them as Peter Griffin right here. If you're in the private sector, you have to do this all the time. To think that you can work for the federal government and just be at home in your basement eating Cheetos and playing video games and not have to report to anybody is ludicrous. So let's get to President Trump. But before that, a small clip of a podcast from Canada explaining how much tariffs are charged to us from Canada on milk and cheese and eggs. This is why Donald Trump is winning, because we need a businessman to run the country. He gets it. Let's go.
The tariffs that Canada levies and impose right now on U.S. products, this is not new. It's been predating Trump. Milk, 270% tariff. Cheese, 245%. Butter, 298%. Chicken, 238%. Sausages, 69.9%. Lol. Copper, 48% tariffs. Aluminum, 45% tariffs. Steel, 25% tariffs. We tariff their metals more than they tariff ours. You know, cars, 45%. TVs, 45%. Eggs, 163%.
How does that work for tariffing American cars? Usually tariffs are to protect like your own industry, but we don't have any Canadian car manufacturers.
I don't think they give a fuck. I think it's just a way to make money.
We're helping Ukraine like nobody's ever helped Ukraine before. And I can say this, if I didn't become president, Ukraine would right now still be at a level where there would be no even thinking about a peace. And it was, it's a sad thing that this happened. This would have never happened, this war, if I were president. Zero chance. And it has happened. So my function is to get you out of the war, get them out of the war, let them live. It's a bloody war. It's a horrible war. Thousands of people are being killed a week. And I would say Russia, maybe 700,000 people. I think Ukraine probably a similar number. And that's not talking about the towns and the cities that have been blown up. That's talking about soldiers. This has been a horrible, bloody mess. And we're going to get it solved. We got to get it solved. And you know, we're not talking about America's soldiers from this country. We're talking about Russia and Ukraine. But on a humanitarian basis, we have to get this very, very bloody, savage problem solved. And I will say this also, it could lead to World War III if it's not solved. You know, there'll be a point at which it's not going to stop at those two countries. Already there's such involvement from other countries. And it could really lead to a very big war, World War III, and we're not going to let that happen either.
Do you think that DOGE could benefit from more streamlined communications? There was that email telling employees to give 5 things that they've done last week. Agency heads then told people to ignore it.
You're talking about the last email that was sent where he wanted to know what you did this week. You know why he wanted that, by the way? I thought it was great. Because we have people that don't show up to work and nobody even knows if they work for the government. So by asking the question, tell us what you did this week, what he's doing is saying, are you actually working? And then if you don't answer, like you're sort of semi-fired or you're fired, because a lot of people are not answering because they don't even exist. They're trying to find, that's how badly various parts of our government were run by, and especially by this last group. So what they're doing is they're trying to find out who's working for the government. Are we paying other people that aren't working? And, you know, where is all this? Where's the money gone? We have found hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud so far, and we've just started. We're actually going to Fort Knox to see if the gold is there, because maybe somebody stole the gold. Tons of gold. So I think it was actually, there was a lot of genius in sending it. We're trying to find out if people are working. And so we're sending a letter to people, please tell us what you did last week. If people don't respond, it's very possible that there is no such person or they're not working. We're on time with the tariffs, and it seems like that's moving along very rapidly. We've been mistreated very badly by many countries, not just Canada and Mexico. We've been taken advantage of. We were led by, in some cases, fools, because anybody that would sign documents like they signed, where they were able to take advantage of the American people, like has happened over the last long period of time, except for a little 4-year period that took place 4 years ago. But anybody that would agree to allow this to happen to our country should be ashamed of themselves. No, the tariffs are going forward on time, on schedule. This is an abuse that took place for many, many years. And I'm not even blaming the other countries that did this. I blame our leadership for allowing it to happen. I mean, you know, who can blame them if they made these great deals with the United States, took advantage of the United States on manufacturing, on just about everything, every aspect that you can imagine they took advantage of. I look at some of these agreements, I'd read them at night, and I'd say, who would ever sign a thing like this? So the tariffs will go forward, yes, and we're going to make up a lot of territory. All we want is reciprocal. We want reciprocity. We want to have the same. So if somebody charges us, we charge them. It's very simple, but it'll be very good for our country. Our country will be extremely liquid and rich again.
Thank you.
Guys, if you don't mind just smashing that thumbs up button for your boy, that really goes a long way to helping me out. Also, if you're not yet subscribed and this is not your first time here, hopefully this could be the video that earn your subscription. Now let's watch a quick video of Jessica Trarlov spouting the Dems talking points about Doge. Trarlov is a paid hack. Let's go.
And you see Republicans all over the country. And no, Jesse, these are not plants that are showing up at their town halls.
I never said that. But you were thinking that.
Okay, so I headed you off. They were actually people who worked at the CDC in Rich McCormick's district. But people are showing up in Oklahoma, in Arkansas, Pennsylvania, Missouri, Wisconsin, and they're saying what's going on at Doge is unacceptable. And are you kidding me with these Medicaid cuts?
The next clip you're going to watch is from Benny Johnson's show, where he talks about a whistleblower from the FBI exposing the fact that they are actively destroying evidence now that Dan Bongino and Kash Patel are in charge. And then we have Jasmine Crocket, who proves every time she opens her mouth that she is a complete moron. Inflation is insanely high in America, and that has to do with bad government money management, wasteful government spending. That's why we're also in debt. She goes on Charlemagne's show and says, well, there's not a lot of fraud and government abuse, also calls Trump voters stupid and uneducated. And Charlemagne says, well, why are we so in debt then? Exactly. Let's get it.
You maybe give us a closer in perspective as to what the subversion is happening inside of the building right now. I mean, it's obviously you're going to have like an antibody reaction to somebody like Kash.
I'll give you a big one that I heard recently, which was already passed on, is that there are FBI servers that are sort of standalone, and people inside the FBI have been working night and day to destroy files on these servers. And I was told that once these files are destroyed, the way they are set up, that even Elon Musk could not restore them. So that's happening right now as we speak. That's happening with Kash Patel being the director. It was happening before he got there. And so that subversion, like I said, started immediately. And it's only going to continue. These people, here's another example. I was told last week, right out of the gates, Kash Patel came out and said 1,500 people, 500, you're going to Alabama. You're still going to be headquarters personnel. You're going to Alabama. 1,000 of you, you're going out to the field. He said this long before the election, even, that he said if he was in charge, he would say, let cops be cops, and so go out and be cops. Already, people are saying, we are not going to comply with that. We are going to make it seem as if we transferred. We're going to do what they call, quote unquote, paper transfers, and we're not going to obey these lawful orders. I don't know if you heard Stephen Miller in the last few days. He came out and has given a great civics lesson on Article 2 of the Constitution. The FBI falls under the executive branch, and you have these career bureaucrats who say, no, we answer to no one. Well, hopefully that's going to change, and I think under Kash Patel and Dan Bongino leadership, I think it will. But they've got to root out this subversion first.
Somebody who works inside of the West Wing came up to us in a private setting when we were in D.C. and said, you would not believe the number of times that my office has to be swept for bugs.
It's crazy.
And inside the White House has to be swept by agencies to figure out if there's electronic monitoring that's happening to us on a daily basis. It's crazy. Any idea what was on the servers that's so damning that it has to be siloed into such a secure facility with the lack of redundancy or capacity for anybody to go through and sort of from like digital forensics, right? You can uncover most data that's deleted, you can uncover it in some capacity. So somebody's worked very hard to make sure that this data that you're talking about can be deleted and destroyed forever. Any idea what it is?
No idea on what it is. I can only speculate, but you mentioned the Epstein list. I'd imagine it's cases like that. It's intel cases that are very siloed, very secretive. And I'm sure there's probably even information regarding the FBI's own subversive measures against Americans, against American politicians, for instance. We learned over the last few days that the Oval Office was bugged, and they took out the Resolute desk to inspect it more. Who's doing that type of thing, Benny? It's going to be, if they're operating at all as they should be, it's going to be the FBI, because they're the domestic agency. Now, is it beyond the CIA or NSA playing a role? No, not at all, because I think all of these agencies at this point do not have the best interest of the American public in mind. That's something that the Trump administration is trying to change, but it's going to be an uphill battle, I believe, for the entire term.
Like, and we know, like, this isn't me trying to throw shade. These are just the facts. Mm-hmm. When you look at who's voting for who, the less educated folk, and when I say educated, I'm not even talking about formal education. I'm talking about people that literally don't want to read and enlighten themselves on facts. Mm-hmm. Those are the people that typically vote for the Republicans, and it's one of the reasons that we have to stop writing in theses as Democrats, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we want to give you every single little detail that we can find so that you can have all the information. But the reality is that the average person that is going out there and voting, they're not paying attention to that.
There is a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government, though.
I'm not going to say that there's a lot. I'm going to say that it does exist. I'm going to say that it exists. I don't think that there's a lot. I think.
So why are we so in debt then?
We're in debt because we decide that we're going to reduce the income.
The Associated Press is still all up in arms about their pass being revoked by Donald Trump and the White House staff. Look, all you got to do is call the Gulf of America by the right name and stop calling it the Gulf of Mexico. They went to a judge. They tried to get this appealed, and it backfired. And the judge said no, stating that as President Trump's lawyers, we are proud to fight to protect his leadership as our president, and we are vigilant in standing against entities like AP, the Associated Press, that refuse to put America first. Boom. Now let's get to the next clips. What Dan Bongino getting emotional talking about his new position with President Trump. The first one you're going to watch is of Pete Hegseth having a massive mic drop. A federal employee says she only had 48 hours to answer Elon Musk's email. We have Peter Navarro explaining to CNN why Trump's tariffs are such a good thing for America. Speaker Mike Johnson, Secretary Duffy, let's go.
Underqualified retired lieutenant general to be the next chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
I'm gonna choose to reject your unqualified question. Who's next?
I got a call from the president, and he couldn't have been nicer. And I obviously keep the contents of it between us, but I think you get the gist about what it was about. And kind of broke down a bit because it was. This is now real. So, President, Attorney General Bondi, and now Director, gosh, that sounds good to say, FBI Director Akash Patel offered this role, a role I expressed an interest in. And ladies and gentlemen, I told you, you see, it's hard for me. I'm going to accept the role proudly as the Deputy Director, the number 2 spot at the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Folks, it's a lot to walk away from. I will tell you everything what happened within reason, and then I got a show to do, and I'm going to tell you what's going to happen with the show. So it's going to be a pretty wild ride today. Man, do we have a lot to talk about.
First, just tell us about this email and what it was like receiving it and what you all have talked about after getting it.
Sure. I got this email Saturday afternoon, about 3 p.m., and I felt absolutely infuriated getting this email with a demand within 48 hours to provide a response on what I did within the last week or face termination. This is clearly an attempt from Elon Musk to harass and bully and intimidate the federal workforce. which is part of his broader plan to gut the federal workforce and privatize public sector services to ensure that corporations like his own can get more profit. And that makes me really angry, and my coworkers as well.
I have no problem with the employees here saying, what did you do last week? And if you can't come up with 5 things that you did, maybe you shouldn't be employed here. So again, this is an easy task. It happens in the private sector all the time. And so I wanted our employees to actually engage and talk about what they did. And I think this whole movement, Bill, is potentially going to make people go, I'm going to come to work earlier. I'm going to stay later. I'm going to look at what Donald Trump wants me to accomplish because he won the election. And I'm going to fight and work to make sure I help him accomplish that because I'm a public servant. I don't work for a party or a union or a think tank. I actually work for the president. And again, I think this goes to that point. Just tell us what you did last week.
Okay, so we looked up today's...
In the Congress, we could have oversight. The problem is, for decades, as we know, we haven't been able to do that job well, because even though we requested the data and requested the insight, it was hidden. How many of you know that bureaucracy was not forthcoming, right? They're not transparent. That's the whole point. That's the problem. That's the deep state we talk about. So they were hiding from Congress. We didn't know that USAID was funding drag shows in Peru or whatever, transgender operas in Colombia or whatever, it's madness. But Elon has cracked the code. He is now inside the agencies. He's created these algorithms that are constantly crawling through the data, and as he told me in his office, the data doesn't lie. We're going to be able to get the information. We're going to be able to transform the way the federal government works at the end of this, and that is a very exciting prospect. It is truly a revolutionary moment for the nation.
Thank you.
Have you ever met Tucker?
We've talked a lot.
Kate, you're absolutely right that this is not a left or right issue. It's an American issue. And what these countries are doing is discriminating against our biggest tech companies. And they do it in a way where this DST, the digital service tax, only applies to the very largest companies. And it's always the American companies. And meanwhile, they use them to promote their own national champions inside the country. Effectively, they steal our tax revenues from us. And here's how this works. The DST basically taxes the revenues of these companies in their countries, and those are then deducted from profits that the companies would otherwise pay corporate taxes on here. And it's just outrageous. And this has been a contagion. It started in France in 2019. They put on a 3% tax. President Trump immediately cracked down on that, and they backed off, and there was negotiations. But then in the last 4 years, the Biden administration kind of let that go, and there's been a contagion. This is what we worry about here. It started with France, but now it's Turkey, Spain. You've got it spreading to Africa now. You're spreading to Asia. And the danger here is that these things are going to be used in a punitive way to punish. And who's involved? You got what are digital services? We should ask that question. It's like Amazon with its cloud computing, its online marketing, Meta with its social media, Google with its digital advertising, things like that. And it's literally billions of dollars. So the boss says that's not going to happen anymore. He embraces what we call the philosophy of reciprocal trade. So if they're going to harm us, we're going to respond in kind with tariffs until they back off. And I think these countries, Kate, are going to learn that the juice isn't worth the squeeze, and President Trump's strength here is going to save American taxpayers billions of dollars.
Elon posted this, and I thought this was a great meme. Like, it actually made me laugh. I'm going to leave you here with a clip of Vivek Ramaswamy speaking in Ohio, where he's running for governor to a receptive crowd. These people were on their feet cheering the man on. He's going to be the governor of Ohio. Just one more step in making America great again. This was a great speech by Vivek. I'm going to play you some of the best parts. Peace out, everybody.
President Trump is reviving our conviction in America. We require a leader here at home who will revive our conviction in Ohio. And that is why today I am honored to announce that I am running to be the next governor of a great state at the heart of the greatest nation known to mankind, the state where I was born and raised, the state where Apurva and I raise our 2 sons today, a state whose best days are still ahead, I am honored to announce my candidacy to serve as the next governor of the state of Ohio. I will lead Ohio to be the top state in the country to start and grow a new business. I will lead Ohio to be the top state in the country to raise a young family. I'll lead Ohio to be the top state in the country where our kids get a world-class education in math, reading, writing, critical thinking, and physical education. I will lead Ohio to be the top state in the country where we give our kids the toolkit to think of themselves not as victims, but as victors in a competitive global economy. We will lead Ohio to be the top state in the country where we embrace capitalism and meritocracy instead of apologizing for it. We will lead Ohio to be the top state in the country that takes a hatchet to red tape, overregulation, and bureaucracy. We will lead Ohio to be the top state in the country where we lead the way in the sectors of the future, from semiconductors to aerospace. I will lead Ohio to be the top state in the country where patriots across America actually flock to instead of Florida and Texas. I will lead Ohio to be the state of excellence in America. We need to bring down the income tax, eventually down to zero, because you deserve to keep what you earn. It is your money, not the government's. We need to bring down property taxes in this state immediately, eventually down to zero. If you own land, it should not feel like it's a lease from the government, and yet so many Ohioans are paying as much in property taxes as they are on principal repayments on their mortgage. That is wrong, it is un-American, and it will end one way or another on my watch as your next governor. We're going to take every public expenditure in this state and make sure it is visible to the public on the blockchain, from the state level to every municipality, to every locality, to every county. You deserve to see, as taxpayers, how your money is actually being spent, because sunlight is the best disinfectant. Transparency is the way forward for our state. If Silicon Valley was at the leading edge of the American economy for the last 10 years, it will be the Ohio River Valley for the next 10 years. And I will lead this state to make it so. And as your next governor, I will ensure that we stand for vocational programs for those who want to be electricians and welders and carpenters and builders, supporting Earn While You Learn programs as early as high school, getting the occupational licensing requirements out of the way so people don't have to actually riddle themselves with college debt on their shoulders to also pursue the American dream. I don't call these the trades. We should stop calling it that. I call them professions, because that's what they really are. We want to be a state where all paths are open. We want the genius programmers who are going to program the next generation of AI. We also want the skilled workers who are able to use that AI and apply it to their respective fields, from healthcare to financial services to construction design. This isn't a blame game. It's not a game of either or, where one of these paths is more or less elite than the other. We're a state where the paths to success are plural. I'm getting hot here. I'm taking this home. I'm taking this home, but I appreciate that, hat man. Thank you. In all seriousness, I want Ohio to be a state where the best students in our state who want to become a doctor or an engineer, or for that matter, a scholar of history or literature or chemistry, can go to our universities, from UC to OSU to Bowling Green to OU, to pursue that dream, while our best young men and women who want to become an electrician or a welder or a mechanic also have a path to success as well. We are the state where every path should be open to every child. That is what a true meritocracy is all about. America was built on the idea of a meritocracy.